Herron, and here we are in the fourth and final video in our series on concert percussion that's being brought to you by the Maryland Symphony Orchestra. In this video, I'm going to talk about developing accuracy on the keyboard percussion instruments. I'm going to present you with 2 ideas and 3 exercises to help you on the xylophone, like what I have here, on the orchestra bells, on the vibraphone, and the marimba. The same techniques will work across the board. So no matter what instrument you have at your disposal, from the smallest bell kit to the largest marimba, these ideas and techniques are going to help you to develop more accuracy in your expression on the instrument that you have. Okay, let's talk about mallets first. If you're playing xylophone or orchestra bells in your ensemble, chances are you're using hard plastic mallets, which is great. It's going to give you a big sound. It's going to help you to project over a large ensemble like a band, or wind ensemble, or orchestra. And you can hear that they produce a very piercing sound. Which will work great in your group. But when I practice, I like to use a softer mallet. Now this is just medium rubber, and you can hear that it gets quite a softer sound. Okay, so practice with a softer stick on xylophone and bells. On vibes and marimba, it's not so important because those mallets are already a little bit softer than the ones we use on xylophone and bells because they're wrapped in yarn or cord. All right, let's talk about holding the sticks. If you play snare drum and if you use the matched snare drum grip, well then that's the same as the grip for the keyboard percussion instruments. So if you know that from snare drum, you're all ready to get started. If not, just bend your arm at the elbow here, let your hand hang, and put the stick in between your thumb and forefinger, and you're ready to go. Okay, so I told you I was going to give you 2 ideas. The first one is this: keep your mallets low to the instrument when you're playing. Think about it. On each of these tone bars, the target is very small, 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches, 2.5 at the most. On some bell kits, even smaller than that, maybe 3/4 of an inch. So very tiny target. So the farther I get away from that bar, the greater the chances that I'm going to miss that target. So if I keep my mallets low to the keyboard, I have a greater chance of being accurate. Now, when I'm ready to play, when I'm approaching the instrument, I want to keep my wrist low. And how low, you say? Well, a good gauge for that is to stick your pinky out, your pinky finger, and if you can touch the tip of your pinky to a tone bar, then you're at a good distance from it. Okay, so that's how you gauge how far down to hold your wrist. Now, how high should I bring the stick? I don't recommend coming any higher than 6 inches away from the bar. So keep your stroke 6 inches and smaller, and that's going to go a long way for hitting the right notes. Now, the second idea that I'm going to give you is something called the down-up stroke. This is a term coined by the great percussionist Phil Krause. And what that means is that you start the stroke in the up position. Okay, so my sticks are up and ready to go. And I go down, up, down, up. Now the opposite of this is the way a lot of people play, and that is up, down, up, down. Now to do that, you've got to anticipate a little more. You've got to bring that stick up before you're even ready to play. Okay, so those 2 things, the down-up stroke and keeping the mallets low, those are our 2 ideas that we're going to work on in the next 3 exercises. Okay, the first exercise that I'm going to give you really is more homework than an exercise. And what it is you need to know your 12 major scales. Now, if you don't know them, this might seem like a big task and something that's very hard to do, but it's really not. Think about learning how to spell 12 new words. Okay, that doesn't seem so bad, right? Now, what if I told you that each one of those words used the same 7 letters? Well, that's a little easier, isn't it? Okay, now what you have to do, what you have to learn is what makes each of those 12 different, and that's the addition of sharps and flats. So your first exercise is to memorize and be able to play accurately at a slow tempo all 12 major scales. Great. Now you've got your 12 major scales. The second exercise is an exercise that uses those major scales. And what it is playing halfway up the scale and then back down, playing all the way up the scale, halfway down, back up, and then all the way down. That sounds rather confusing, but let me play it for you real quick and you'll see that it's not. Okay, so did that sound familiar? If any of you have ever spent any time in marching band, it's a very popular exercise in those ensembles. It's also in Phil Krause's book. It's called Form 1 in that book, and it's also in the instruction course by George Hamilton Green. So it's a very common exercise used by countless percussionists to develop their scales. So learn that first in C major, and then apply that to all of your major scales that you've learned. All right, now the last exercise that I'm going to give you is playing what's called an arpeggio. Those are the first, the third, and the fifth tones from the major scales. Okay, so now you have those three exercises. As you're practicing them, I want you to apply those two ideas that I gave you. Keeping the mallets low and using the down-up stroke. If you practice those exercises in all 12 keys with those two ideas in mind, I guarantee you're going to improve your keyboard accuracy. Now I'd like to conclude this video by playing a short solo by George Hamilton Green. Now you'll see when I play this that I'm applying those two concepts of keeping the mallets low and using the down-up stroke to play the scales and arpeggios that make up the music. If you have any questions about anything from this video or anything about percussion in general, please drop me a line at herronpercussion@gmail.com. Also, check out the Maryland Symphony's website for their future events. Thank you so much for watching. 1, 2, 1, 2.
you.